It's the most wonderful time of the year. And that's true. I love the bowl season, but of course it's my job as the voice of college football to make suggestions and adjustments to make it even better. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, here to review the bowl season, the bowl schedule, the bowl matchups, and to make some adjustments that should have been made before they were all released. We should have thought about some of these things. If there was a commissioner of college football, he wouldn't allow all the bowls to act independently. He would look at the big picture and be able to say, for the better of college football, for the betterment of the fans in particular, we're going to move that team over here. We're going to make some slight adjustments maybe to the TV schedule as well to make this a more enjoyable time of the year. Let's start with the Pinstripe Bowl. Miami and Wisconsin. I have no issue on a regular basis for these two teams to be playing. I love the non-conference matchups from some of these storied traditional programs playing, like a Wisconsin, like a Miami. But we only have so many of these games, and we would actually like to see two teams that have never played. Why is Miami and Wisconsin? Why are they playing 1 year after they just played? The Badgers and the Canes just played in the Orange Bowl last year. They are going to play again with so many other matchups out there to be formed. We have so many options, so many different scenarios, but we can't avoid Wisconsin and Miami playing again. Of course we can. They played in the Orange Bowl. They're going to play in the Pinstripe Bowl. Bowl season is basically for two groups of people. It's to reward the players and to send them on a vacation of sorts. It's also for the fans, for us to enjoy matchups that we would never see. We don't have enough quality non-conference matchups in the regular season that we get to enjoy seeing the Big Ten and the SEC mix it up, and the ACC and the SEC, and all the cross-sectional matchups of all the Power 5 leagues having to play each other. So Wisconsin-Miami, it was great in the Orange Bowl last year, but I don't need to see it again. These players don't get to see many of the teams in their own league, let alone seeing a Miami or a Wisconsin 12 months after they just played them. That makes absolutely no sense. The only thing that may make this game somewhat interesting is the weather. Of course, they played in tropical Miami last year. This time around, it's going to be in New York City at Yankee Stadium at the Pinstripe Bowl, where traditionally, in recent years, we have seen a snowy, icy, cold, frigid cold conditions for this ball game. So it could be like that for Miami. And of course, we would expect that they wouldn't be too ready to play in those kind of conditions. But what could we have? We could switch out some teams and set up some better matchups, or some matchups that we've not seen. How about a Wisconsin-Mississippi State bowl game? And then we take Mississippi State's opponent, Iowa. We match them up against Miami. Or how about Wisconsin and Oregon? They've not seen each other since the 2011 Rose Bowl. We take Wisconsin and Oregon. That frees up Michigan State to take on Miami. Michigan State-Miami. That sounds like a great matchup as well. Or how about this one? David Blau and the Purdue offense with Rondale Moore taking on that Miami defense, one of the best defenses in the country, against Rondale Moore and David Blau. That's a great matchup. Take Purdue, let them go play Miami in New York City in the Pinstripe Bowl, and then Auburn plays Wisconsin. They did play 4 years ago, but none of those players are still around. Melvin Gordon and the rest of those guys are off to the NFL. That was in 2014. Purdue and Miami. I like that one. Purdue and Miami, David Blau, Rondale Moore against the Miami defense. Wisconsin and Miami should not be playing again. All right, there's a bunch of different ways to remedy that. All right, this is a slight adjustment that doesn't bother me that much, but it's an opportunity for the bowl season to reward us just a little bit more. We've got, right now, Penn State and Iowa could be flipped, and that would match up Penn State against Mississippi State. Of course, Joe Moorhead's old team as offensive coordinator at Penn State, just 1 year removed, taking on Penn State. now head coach at Mississippi State. Penn State, Mississippi State sounds like a great matchup to me, and just the intrigue of a former coach taking on his old team. And then that would leave, let's see, Iowa to take on Kentucky. Very good. All right. Believe me, I want traditional matchups. So get my intention here. I do not want the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl to be broken up. They're fine the way they are. Ohio State, Washington's a nice matchup. Possibly Georgia, Texas. It could be a blowout. Many people believe that it will be. Georgia's decidedly better over the course of 12 games. Anything can happen on that night in New Orleans. But how about these matchups? What if they flip-flopped and we had Washington, Texas play, and we had Ohio State and Georgia, the two best teams not to make the playoff? Again, I love tradition, but the tradition is already ambushed on the years that the Rose Bowl has to take part in the college football playoff. So the Big Ten, Pac-12 matchups are already obliterated. They've already been compromised in the playoff years. So that's already out the door. I'm just weighing what the matchups could be here. Ohio State, Georgia. You talk about a ball game. If they both came motivated and focused and ready to play, that would be a great game. Ohio State, Georgia, Washington, Texas, a little bit more on the same level as well. Just a suggestion. Just a what could be. Again, I love the Big Ten and the Pac-12 in the Rose Bowl, and the SEC, of course, going to the Sugar Bowl. But again, both those bowls have been compromised over and over and over and over, starting with the BCS championship games. All right, this is one that's been brought up a number of times by people, and it's obvious. And because of the bowl selection process, it didn't work out. But it should just be, again, a governing body, a college football commissioner who could step in and say, let's right some wrongs here. Let's do what's best for the matchups and for the fan bases. Why are UCF and Florida not playing? UCF and Florida. Instead, and just think about that, all that pressure placed on the Florida Gators to prove that the little brother in the state is not better than them. That they would have to, again, defend the SEC, as LSU will be, after Auburn went down to UCF last year. UCF versus the SEC again. So we already have that in play. But to add to it would be UCF against Florida for the Florida State Championship this year. And again, there's a hierarchy I think we all recognize. Florida, Florida State, Miami, Power 5 superpowers most of the time. UCF scuffling for respect, taking on Florida. That's what people want to see. And then on top of it, that's getting the focus, that possible matchup that was missed. But how about the other matchup? Michigan, LSU. Two brand name powers meeting. And sure, that's the case with Michigan and Florida. But Michigan and Florida have played 5 times since 2003. Okay, that's 15 years. 5 times. But they've also played now 3 times in 24 months. They played in the Capital One Bowl, Citrus Bowl, whatever we call it now, in January of 2016. Then they played in the opener in 2017. They'll be playing in January of 2018. 3 times in 24 months, Michigan and Florida will play. How many times do you think Michigan and LSU have played? How about 0? Michigan and LSU have never met on a football field. That is almost tragic in well over 100 years of football. No Michigan-LSU matchups, but we could have had one here. We could have made it happen. Michigan versus LSU, and at the same time, UCF and Florida for the Florida State Championship. And for, again, an SEC possible embarrassment against UCF, and UCF trying to prove again that they are elite. All right. And finally, the scheduling. The TV schedule always drives me nuts on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So think about this. The bowl season starts on Saturday, December 15th. And for the majority of the bowl games, I'm talking about 30 to 35 of the 40 bowl games, you will be able to watch that game, those two teams exclusively. There will not be a decision that has to be made. Do I want to watch this game or that game or this game or that game? Like there is every Saturday during the college football season when all of us as college football junkies want to be able to watch the 6 games that are on at the same time, but we can't. And so it's always a juggling act trying to watch all the games at the same time. Bowl season is beautiful for the one aspect of it that you can watch each game individually. Once they started playing on Saturday, we're going to see the likes of Sun Belt and MAC teams and Mountain West teams and Conference USA teams, and we're going to be able to watch them exclusively, and they've got the entire national stage to themselves. And College Football Nation will have to focus on Buffalo or Northern Illinois or Appalachian State, or Louisiana, or whomever from those small conferences. So the games obviously generally become more important with more significant teams, with higher profile teams as we get closer to New Year's Day. That's the way the system is built. So what do you think happens on New Year's Eve? At noon, Cincinnati and Virginia Tech play. Then at 2 o'clock, when that game is somewhere in the third quarter, you're going to have to make a decision between staying with Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, or flipping to catch the kickoff of Stanford and Pitt. So you're not going to be able to watch both games at the same time because they've overlapped them. And then at 3 o'clock, to make matters worse, when Cincinnati and Virginia Tech might be halfway through the fourth quarter and Stanford and Pitt are somewhere in the second quarter, the kickoff of the Michigan State-Oregon game. So we've got Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, Stanford, Pitt, and Michigan State, Oregon all playing at the same time. Then at 3:45, fortunately, the Cincinnati, Virginia Tech game should be over by then, but let's paint this scenario. There's a long halftime. There are always long halftimes during these bowl games. They always last longer than regular season games. And on top of that, let's say Cincinnati and Virginia Tech go to overtime. At 3:45, you will have the Bearcats and the Hokies in overtime. You'll have Stanford and Pitt somewhere around halftime into the second half. You will have Michigan State and Oregon just starting, and you will have the kickoff of the Mizzou-Oklahoma State game at 3:45 Eastern Time. 4 games to choose from, at least 3 for sure to choose from at the same time. Then at 7 o'clock, we've got Northwestern and Utah, in which the Mizzou-Oklahoma State game will still be played. They'll still be in play at 7 o'clock, and you'll have to choose between the Tigers and the Cowboys or the Wildcats and the Utes. Then at 7:30, that Missouri-Oklahoma State game will still probably be in play somewhere in the fourth quarter, and you'll have to choose between staying with Missouri and Oklahoma State if it's a really good game. Northwestern Utah is going to be somewhere in the second quarter, and North Carolina State and Texas A&M kick off at 7:30 Eastern Time. Why? Okay. On January 1st, the very next day, New Year's Day, at noon, kicks off Iowa, Mississippi State. Then at 1 o'clock, at some point early in the second quarter of the Hawkeyes and the Bulldogs, you're going to have to choose between not just one game, but 3 games. The 3 games will be the noon kickoff that I just pointed out. Then at 1 o'clock, we've got 2 games kicking off. Penn State and Kentucky and LSU and UCF. So if you're an SEC fan who wants to watch all the SEC bowl games, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and LSU are all playing at the same time. If you're a Big Ten fan, then you've got to just wrestle with Iowa and Penn State. But if you're an SEC fan, 3 teams are playing at the same time on New Year's Day. Those are my thoughts about the bowl season. I love the bowl season. I can't get enough of it. Bring it on, starting Saturday, but we could make it even better. Would love to hear your suggestions, maybe some of the matchups that you love and maybe some of the matchups that you would like to see changed. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.